Welcome back to the Curtain Wire with Jared. I am so excited to have my next guest on today, Valerie Tripp, an author of the American Girl, Early American Girl series. Valerie, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so glad to have you on.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Tell us, let's start from the very beginning. What inspired you to be a writer, especially for children's books?
I think my parents inspired me because they read aloud to my sisters and my brother and me when we were very little. And they made it clear when they read aloud what delight there was in children's books. My father would read aloud to my sisters and me before we went to sleep, and he would get so wrapped up in the story, he would forget to stop. We realized if we were quiet, he would go on to another chapter and another chapter because he was loving the book and laughing at the jokes and using different voices for the different characters and having as much fun as we were. So I think before I could even read, I was learning how delightful and how enchanting, what a whole new universe children's books could open up to you. Then when I was able to read myself, I just happily walked into that universe. The books I read when I was a child really just became part of who I am. And so I think those two things were huge motivations to write for children.
Yeah, and you have such an impressive, I was looking at your education background. You went to Yale and you went to Harvard. Um, how did that educational background and experience like also shape your writing for you?
That's a great question. Most people don't ask me about that, but that's
Yeah.
an excellent question because as an undergraduate, I majored in psychology because I was interested in child development. And
Okay.
I also majored in philosophy because I wanted to get my money's worth out of college. I knew I'd happily read novels all by myself, so I shouldn't major in English. But I wanted to major in something where it was difficult. And by majoring in philosophy, to tell you the truth, Jared, in order to understand what I was reading, I had to more or less translate what the philosophers had written into the simplest possible language. And that discipline of reading something, taking a complicated concept and translating it to the clearest, most direct possible language turned out to be a wonderful background to writing for children. And then a hugely important thing happened when I was an undergraduate. My very first year was the year of the Black Panther riots in New Haven, and my dorm decided we would be a safe haven for families. And we would be the place people who had brought children to New Haven could safely leave their children so they wouldn't get tear gassed. They would be in no danger. It was, I loved it. I loved it. From that experience, my friends and I in our dorm started a daycare center called Calvin Hill Daycare Center. He was a big football hero. I'm proud to say that 50 years later, more than 50 years later, Calvin Hill Daycare Center is still thriving. By the time my senior year rolled around, I was spending more time at the daycare center than anywhere else. And I was interviewing the children, and I would ask them to tell me the stories of their lives. And, they would tell me about how when they went home, they turned into a superhero. I just loved it so much.
Yeah.
And so the idea of being able to write for children, it just delighted me. The idea that you could be creating materials for children to read and remembering how much I loved all children's literature when I was young. All of those things, that educational background and my experience with my family all contributed to what I do and who I ended up working for and just my continuing joy in what I do.
Yeah. Can you tell us, we'll transition to the American Girl characters here. Can you tell our listeners who, like the stories, which characters you wrote for American Girl?
Well, I'm a little odd in that I worked with Pleasant for 12 years
Yeah.
before Pleasant Rowland created American Girl. So she and I worked on a reading program called the Super Kids, where we created
Oh.
characters. The point of the Super Kids reading program, what we wrote songs, stories, poems, games, plays, you name it. And really children fell in love with reading through the Super Kids reading program. And so Pleasant and I had already worked together creating
Oh.
characters. And when she had the idea for American Girl, which she sent to me, it was so elegantly simple and straightforward. She sent it to me on a postcard. And then we got together and we planned out the characters and when they would live. And then Pleasant asked me to write descriptions of the first 3 stories about the character who ended up being Samantha, the character who ended up being Kirsten, and the character ended up being Molly. So I wrote 9 story descriptions of the first 3 books about each of those characters. And then Pleasant said to me, well, you're going to have to choose. You can't write about all 3 of those characters. And I knew Samantha. I knew she was going to have all that gorgeous Edwardian Victorian stuff. And
Yes.
I knew I had made her an orphan. So I knew that that was perfect for what was happening to young women. Then you had to choose, were you going to stick with the roles of the past, or were you going to be like Grandmary did, or were you going to be more like Cornelia and believe women should go to college, work, live by themselves, travel? So I knew I could see how that story would work. And for Kirsten, I knew nature itself would be her antagonist. You could have bears, you could have bees, you could have, just this bittersweet background of leaving one country and coming to another. But I couldn't quite see how Molly was going to work. I
Yeah.
couldn't figure how can I make that attractive to girls? How can I make her somebody they want to be? So I chose Molly because I have this perverse tendency to choose things that I don't know how to do and that I don't see clearly, like choosing philosophy as a major. And so I chose Molly. That turned out to be one of the best mistakes a person could ever have made.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love writing Molly. Molly is a unique character, and making her world a world full of anxiety. She was worried about her father with every breath she took. She was worried. And I had to make that world one full of danger, full of worry, but also full of happiness and discovery about yourself. Or Molly's mother discovers a whole new self. And oh, that was a wonderful. Molly has been a good stalwart friend for more than 40 years now.
Yeah.
So I chose Molly and I wrote about Molly. And then one thing led to another. After Molly, I wrote about Felicity. And I loved writing about her because her personality is a mirror of what's going on at the time. She wants more independence than a girl would have had at that time. And then after Felicity, I wrote about Samantha. I inherited Samantha back. My wonderful friend Susan Adler wrote the first few books about Samantha, and she did such a beautiful job. Those books are so lovely. And then, in a very confusing twist of fate, Susan went to work for Colonial Williamsburg. So
Oh.
figure that out. She lived in one of those restored houses in Colonial Williamsburg. So she wasn't going to write about Samantha anymore. So I wrote about Samantha. And then I wrote about Josefina. And then I wrote about Kit. And then I wrote about Mary Ellen. So I've written about many different centuries and
Yeah.
many different characters, all of whom I totally love.
Yeah, so how was it working with the iconic Pleasant Rowland and as you knew her before? And then writing these stories, what was the process like for doing that? Like all the research and everything for those historical times? Tell us about that.
Oh, Jared, really, it's a dream job because for a person like me who just absolutely loves to read, I would start out by reading everything I get my hands on about the historical period. And when I thought that I had defined the crucial issue of the period, then I would write a very chatty description, like a letter to Pleasant, saying, here's what I'm thinking of
Yeah.
doing. What do you think of this? Like, for example, Mary Ellen, it seemed to me the crucial dilemma was conformity versus diversity in the 50s. And so then I have Mary Ellen's personality and life situation show that, echo that, mirror that, be a metaphor for that. And then I just write a long letter to Pleasant saying, how about this? How about this? Or how about this? How about this? And then she would write back and say, no, 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 that's not going to work. Or, oh, that sounds great. So through a series of correspondences, we would get a description of the books. And then I get the green light and go off and write them. That was how it was in the beginning. Later on, of course, American Girl had its own wonderful researchers who
Yeah.
were such great brainstorming partners. Oh, I can't tell you the excitement of talking to a researcher who would say, well, maybe not that, but how about this idea? And you think, oh, that's fabulous. That's way better than what I thought up. And so it got to the point where many people were helping and contributing. And then the day comes where you're kind of all by yourself with the blank page and you pretty much have to produce it all
Yeah.
by yourself. But then afterwards, you have all these wonderful researchers. So it all begins with the research. It all begins with the history. That's how I know what my character is going to be like, what her main challenge is going to be. Kit has to be very hopeful because she lives at the time of the Depression. So sometimes the personality is in direct contrast to the hugest obstacle in the character's way. So it all starts with the research, which I mean, I would cheerfully do research forever, just forever. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
And also, the cool thing happens that it turns out the world's full of the information you need. You just need to wake up and start looking at it. It's, you know, the universe is putting out there for you. You just need to be, you know, listening to it. So I love that too. It's a whole way of being in the world. So the research and then these very chatty descriptions and then a first draft. And then I have to say, for me, a whole 100% is when the artist sends the sketches because the artist always informs me about my characters. The artist tells me things about my characters I didn't know.
Yeah.
The artist, for example, sent me, it was a color sketch of Josefina's sister Clara. And I had Clara be sort of an oppositional character, sort of not an optimistic character the way Josefina is. And the artist showed me this vulnerability in Clara, this softness that I hadn't seen. It's a miracle to me. Art's
Yeah.
just a miracle. And
Yeah.
so then all the parts are put together.
Nice. That was actually gonna be my next question is like when you saw the illustrations of the characters that you wrote for, like the first time, what was that? Was that, excuse me, what was that like? Were you like, this is how I envisioned it, this is how I saw these, or as you mentioned, discovering new things that maybe you didn't know before, so
Absolutely. Now, there were cases where um, I don't know if you remember in the Samantha books, Grand Mary gets married. She marries Admiral Bemis, who's been
yes.
asking her to marry him ever since her husband died. And
Mhm.
I think that he was a friend of her husband's. I think they had known each other for decades. And when the artist sent me his first sketch of Admiral Bemis, I had to say, you know, Grand Mary is taking a huge leap
Yeah.
marrying this. He's got to be really handsome. So I had to say to the artist, I don't really like his nose or his mustache, or you know, I don't like the jacket he's wearing. I don't. His eyes are too close. So I had to kind of ask for a total makeover for
Yeah.
Admiral Beam. And the artists are so fluid and so
Yeah.
brilliant. When
Mhm.
the second sketch came in, it, the artist got it perfect, like absolutely perfect. So most of the time, the sketches would just blow me away, not only with the artist's uh, sort of take on the characters and understanding of the characters, but their whole worlds. You know, I would see the house and I would think, oh, that's what Molly's house looks like, you
Yeah.
know, or the brothers and sisters or the pets. So the artists just it always seemed to me like another whole 100% when it came back from it. I learned so much from the artists. Also, I could cut huge chunks of copy. I didn't need to describe Molly's bedroom. When
Yeah.
you saw the way the artist had depicted it, it was way better than any number of words could describe it. I absolutely loved the stage. It's a very exciting stage when the
Yeah.
art came.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, so the American Girl series, or at the time Pleasant Company, actually came out the year that I was born. And so yes, and so it's so special. I we and when I was in elementary school, we read Addie's books for class, and then I love the character, I love the story arc and everything, and so then I was like, oh, there's more characters. Like I actually knew of these characters as characters before I knew they were dolls, and I actually did a report on Samantha. She was my absolute favorite, so that character just holds a very special place in my heart. I'm a very big fan of the Victorian era too, and so. Um, why
Jared,
my
what was it about Samantha's personality or life situation that you think really you took to heart? What was it about her?
you know, I just liked that even though she's, seemed to come from like a life of privilege, she was very like down to earth, very gravitated, helping out, like Nellie and also the women's suffrage movement, advocating for, her Aunt Cornelia, excuse me. Um, I think those are like those are the characteristics that like really stuck out to me from her character and her stories.
Because I think we would be remiss because so I wrote that description of Samantha in the first three stories, and then one day, Pleasant called me on the phone, and in those days, my phone had a very very long cord. Pleasant called me and she
Yeah.
said, "Listen to this," and she read me the whole manuscript Susan Adler had written of Meet Samantha. I remember first standing, then sitting, and then lying on the floor listening to Pleasant read Susan Adler's Meet Samantha manuscript. Jared, it was perfect. It was perfect. My heart beat
Yeah.
faster. And
Yes.
I thought, Susan is a genius. And she took the description of Samantha and she breathed life into that character.
Yeah.
She's the one who imbued her with that empathy, that ability to care about other people and take action because she
Yeah.
cared so much about other people. That is Susan Adler did that. And so when you talk about what drew you to Samantha, that Susan deserves credit for that. She just I remember thinking I couldn't have done this. And there's
Yeah.
something so I don't know, it's kind of like when it's sort of like a family being formed. I
Yeah.
thought, I love Samantha, and now Susan loves Samantha. And then I inherited Samantha, the Samantha that Susan created from Susan. And there was something so lovely about that. So
Yeah.
so you and I owe a huge thank you to Susan Adler.
Yes, thank you, Susan Adler. Um, yeah, because I actually this last winter reread the first six again, the first original six again, and it was just so interesting. I had not read them since I was a kid, like in full like that, and so it was just very interesting to go back and reread them from the adult lens versus when I versus when I was a kid. So, and I was gonna ask you along with that. Why do you think these characters not only were um big for like young girls, but also boys enjoyed reading these books and these characters. I have a lot of other male friends that really enjoyed these stories as a kid and even collect some of the dolls and everything. Like, why do you think it also appealed to them as well, these characters?
Well, because I think that though the characters are girls, the first thing they are is children.
Yep.
They're children and they are facing adult sized problems, many of them, as children, and they're not magic. They don't have
Yep.
wands. They don't have
Yeah.
superpowers. All they have is their own heart and soul and determination, and they have people around them. They have people around them who love them and will help them. So I think boys and grown ups, all of
Yeah.
us like to go back and revisit a place where we see a challenge being faced with believable bravery
Yeah.
and believable fallibility. I mean, all these characters are flawed
Yeah.
and humor. And I think the underlying message of Samantha faced hard things, you face hard things and
Yeah.
disappointments. Jared, I've got to tell you, my readers have never once let me down by
Yeah.
being brilliant at making a bridge between my character's situation and their own.
Mm-hmm.
Girls will write to me and say, I know how Josefina feels
Yeah.
because my parents are divorced. My father's married again. I like my stepmother. Is that disloyal to my mother? They've made that bridge from Josefina. Josefina lives on a rancho in
Yeah.
1824. Bears no resemblance to the material or physical surroundings that my readers live in, but they had no trouble making that metaphorical connection. So I think boys are great readers too. They can make that metaphorical connection. And the humor and the believability and the sometimes excitement and adventure, they're just stories that you can walk right into. They don't talk down to you. They expect you to be a good reader and
Yeah.
they expect you to understand the complexity and sometimes subtlety of
Yeah.
what's happening to a character. So I think that's what the secret was. This very direct voice speaking to children as important people who should be taken seriously, who have responsibilities, and who have a lot of joie de vivre as well. So I kind of think it's that combination.
Yeah, yeah. So if you were to go back to your childhood self, which of the characters that you wrote, which ones do you think that you would be, I don't want to say the most connected to, but do you think which one do you think would be your favorites?
I guess I'm going to betray a chameleon-like personality
Okay.
because in some moods I am definitely a Molly,
Yep.
very a little bit officious, just the tiniest bit bossy,
Yeah.
and kind of determined to get what I want. And then in other times I'm Josefina. I can be very quiet. I need to fill myself back up, with some solitude and reflection and a, a beautiful environment, just the way Josefina does. And then in other ways, I'm very much like Kit, who's a writer who observes the world from a writer's stance, who thinks, how would I explain this? Who understands the power of the written word. So in some ways, I'm very close to Kit. And in many ways, of course, because we grew up at the same time, I'm very much like Mary Ellen. I mean, on the surface, our situations are most the same.
Hmm.
I admire her because she has a little more. Um, she's a little braver than I am. Actually, Mary Ellen's a little braver than I am. But our life situation, growing up in a big boomer family and trying
Yeah.
valiantly to be seen as a unique individual who still maintains your responsibility to your family and your friends and your, brownie troop, etc. All of those things would seem very similar. So, and I would hope that I'm like Samantha, but I think Samantha's more noble than I am, more noble than I
Yeah.
am. And so, um, Samantha's adventurous and she gets a kick out of things. So I would say we're alike in that way. So I think that it stands me in good stead, actually, Jared, that it's very fluid for me. It's very easy for me to completely be inhabited by Molly. On one corner of my desk, I'm writing
Yeah.
about Molly in 1940, and then the other corner of my desk, I'm in a whole other century and writing about Josefina, who's never heard of a telephone. So I think that the fluidity and chameleon-like nature serves me well as a writer, and I love being able to vicariously live through those characters and say, okay,
Yeah.
listen, Felicity, I'm going to sit out to look for, your friend who's run away. In a million years, I wouldn't be brave enough to do that, but I'm going to see what it would feel like.
Yeah.
You go ahead and have that adventure. Let's see
Yes.
what that feels like.
Yes, yeah. So along with that, do you yourself, I'm assuming, personally, do you have like any of the dolls yourself or any of the collections?
Yes, after I wrote about a character, I was always given the doll and some of the collection. And then my daughter earned Addie, and Janet Shaw gave her Kirsten, and Susan Adler gave her Samantha. And we have many. In fact, we have what my husband refers to as the American Girl apartment house, which is a closet that's divided up into their different
Oh, fun.
environments. I do. And it's great fun for me because, like, for example, in a few weeks, I do this a lot as a charity fundraiser. I'll have a bunch of girls to my house. And so I'll get out all not only the dolls and their clothes, but the clothes, the girl size clothes, how American Girl used to have the girl size clothes. So I get
Yeah.
those all out for the girls and the furniture, and we have tea sandwiches, and
Oh,
it's just a blast. It's
fun.
really a ball. So even though my dolls are not, my granddaughter's only 20 months old, so she's not quite ready to
Yeah.
play with them yet. But they have a happy life. They've got going on. So
Oh,
um, they have they get out of the apartment house frequently.
oh, fun. Oh, that's so fun to hear. Can you tell us about some of your favorite memories, just from the early days of the Pleasant Company?
Oh, you're asking the most wonderful questions,
Oh,
Jared.
no, I'm so
I
excited to hear all
really
your answers. Yeah, this is so great.
they're just really fun questions that also allow me to talk about very important things and my
Yeah.
gratitude to Pleasant and everybody at American Girl. Or one of my favorite memories was Kirsten was originally called Rebecca and she was from Norway. And I wrote those 3 story descriptions that I told you about. I did a lot of
Yep.
research about Norway, the food, the language, the clothes, the customs. and wrote those 3 story descriptions, and Pleasant liked them. And then one day she called and she said, "Dear," she always called me dear, "dear,"
Yeah.
she said, "I have found the most adorable sweater, but it's from Sweden. So quick change. Rebecca can't be Rebecca from Norway anymore. She's going to be Kirsten from Sweden.
Yeah.
So back to the drawing board. Now you're going to have to find out about Swedish food and customs and clothes and stuff like that." And, that sweater is the cutest thing you ever saw. And it has the hat and mittens that go with it and everything. So that I always love that memory too. And
Yeah.
then another happy memory was I finished the 6th book about Molly on December 17th, 1987. And my daughter was born December 19th, 1987. So the 6 books about Molly were finished. And then my daughter was born less than 48 hours later.
Oh, wow.
And so then I just took some time off. And then, I don't know, maybe about February, the phone rang. It was Pleasant. And Pleasant said, Dear, how old is that baby of yours?" And I said, "Well, she's about 3 months old." Pleasant, "Oh, for heaven's sakes, it's time for you to get back to work. Let's
Yeah.
do the Revolutionary Period character." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
This is like so much fun. So much fun. And, we went to Williamsburg so many times. I think people thought that I was, stalking the docents. I just took
Oh,
every
yeah.
tour. I lived down there. It was so, I would just fling my poor daughter, Catherine. I just fling her in a backpack. We'd drive down there to Williamsburg, spend the day. She'd fall asleep in the car on the way back. She learned to walk in Williamsburg. I mean, we just lived down there. It was so much fun. And
Yeah.
then I wrote those Felicity stories. So the stories are so intertwined with my own life. When I was writing Josefina, my family went, as for I think it was about 5 summers, we went to New Mexico. We hiked, we rafted, we went horseback riding. I took cooking lessons. We, lived in a casita. We re-adobed buildings. We did everything totally. At one point, my daughter, Catherine, said, "New Mexico is my real home." Jared, didn't she grow up and marry a guy from New Mexico? I mean, Josefina and I would
Oh,
think we kind of picked up that romance.
yeah.
But she just fell in love with New Mexico at a very early age, and now her husband's from New Mexico. So um, the stories are intertwined with what was going on in my life, what was happening in my, like Josefina. Again, when I was writing that, I saw that my daughter needed another kind of mother. She didn't need a mother who was going to, tie her shoe for her. She needed a mother who would say, "Bye, have a good
Yeah.
time at the sleepover," or "That's fine, I know you can do that." She just, and so that's the mother I gave, the new mother through Tia Dolores
Yeah.
that I gave Josefina. So I was learning as I was going along myself as a mother. And also I owe a huge debt of gratitude to all the thousands of classrooms, brownie troops, book groups, church groups, libraries, bookstores where I went and met thousands and thousands of girls and observed them, and the thousands and thousands of letters I
Yeah.
received. I
Oh,
wrote
I
back to every
bet.
single one who wrote to me. So they were teaching me too. They were telling me what was important to them. I didn't have to invent this. I had a huge group of advisors, in that every single girl who read the book and told me her reaction to it, or boys told me their
Yeah.
reactions, were helping me be sure my stories were authentic and accurate. And I wasn't inventing what children liked and what they were interested in. I knew because they were telling me.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so, as you mentioned, like your stage of life progress, or, as you move forward in life and everything, is there anything, if you were to go back now and maybe change anything about any of the characters that you wrote about, would you make any changes?
Um, hmm. I mean, there is, of course, the Felicity issue that her father, that we were told by Williamsburg, her father would believe that he owned people. I always say it that way
Sure.
because no one
Yeah.
ever actually owned anybody. So
Yep.
he's deluded. And I always chose even the ugly truths over prevarication, or, pretending something totally unacceptable, unforgivable. Sometimes you have to write about things that are unforgivable,
Yeah.
unforgivable. So I, a lot of I think and think and think. If I hadn't done that, I would have been sidestepping a truth. It would be disrespectful to the people who lived through that if I pretended they didn't exist. How can you pretend people didn't, and that their creativity and their energy and their intelligence and their lives were given to this work and what they were creating? I just, I don't know. I don't think I could go back and change that.
Yeah.
I don't think I could, nor would I think it would be correct for me to have Felicity be a little white girl heroine. Changing that would be disrespectful. Also, see what I mean? She's only
Yeah.
9. I don't want to make it like, that she had some superpower. So I think the books have to stand as they are.
Yeah.
I think I have to take responsibility for every word that I wrote, even if some of them make us very uncomfortable. I think a writer's job, I just read this, is to comfort the afflicted and
Yep.
afflict the comforted, afflict
Yeah.
comfortable people. I think about it a lot, and I keep coming back to the same solution, that I have to take responsibility for the stories as they are.
Yeah. Absolutely. If you were to write a new character for American Girl today, what do you think that character would be like? Would it be like a historical, yeah, like what a historical period, or what would be?
I'm still very in love with the research process leading to my character's personality. And there's so many other periods of history out there that I would just be really love to write about. And periods of, I think it was Toni Morrison who said, history's not over with. Don't think history's over with. We keep discovering new things that revolutionize the way we look at the past. Every day we find out new stuff. Every day I'm finding out, for example, about huge contributions that women made, particularly in the sciences and engineering, where they
Oh
were
yeah.
literally erased. Their names were taken off the work that they did. And I would love to pursue that. I would love to write about some period of history and some girl who was very interested in science, the way Mary Ellen is. So I would love to write about a different period of, I think that would be the first thing I would like to do. And I'd like to write more about this is sort of selfish, the periods of history I don't really know very much about, but I'm
Yeah.
very curious about them. So that would give me a chance to just read and read and read, and find find out
Yeah.
about it, and go through that. I would love to do that. And you know, I lie awake at night thinking about the different plots and different adventures I would like to give characters, because I'm different now too. This is 2026. Our world is
Yeah.
different now. And, maybe I would be more political. Maybe I'd have a girl who was more political, because I think all of us have a responsibility to be aware of everything that's happening in our country right now. We
Yeah.
never expected we're going to have to fight for the same rights over again.
Yeah.
Never expected that. So, that might motivate a story. The situation I find myself in right now might motivate us to see how much fun this is.
Yeah. Oh
Turkey,
yeah.
how it's just never ending. It's evergreen. Just,
Yes.
there's people say, don't you run out of ideas? Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Run out of ideas? No
Right.
way. No
Yeah.
way. The, the,
Y-
the task is choosing which idea you want to pursue, which one's going to be the most fun.
Yeah, absolutely. What is your personal favorite historical period? And maybe I think maybe you touched on that earlier, but just out of curiosity, yeah, what is your favorite?
I couldn't really say. And, a lot of times people say, which period would you like to live in? I'm not living in any period that doesn't have air conditioning. I'm telling you that right
Yes.
now. Yeah. I think the Williamsburg is gorgeous, and the symmetry and the gardens and the whole aesthetic is very pleasing. The drive for harmony and everything, very, very lovely. It is too hot. No
Yeah.
thanks. And the clothes are uncomfortable. So I don't think I would want to permanently choose any one of the periods of history to live in. I mean, when you go back to the Rancho in 1824, it's the smells are the pinon smoke and the music. And I find the clothing and the whole attitude toward family. And sure, we're going to have a fandango. We're going to have a party. These people work so hard from dawn to dusk. And then we have energy to have a part and invite all of our neighbors. That attitude towards community, I love that. I think I think a lot of us are isolated now, and that idea of this big, huge community coming together is just enchanting to me. Just enchanting. So I would love to visit all of the time periods, and luckily I have good imagination, so I am
Yeah.
able to feel as though I'm living in those time periods. But as for actually choosing them, and I couldn't possibly give up, my husband or my friends or my daughter or my granddaughter or my son-in-law. I couldn't possibly give up any of the elements in my life that I have now, because they're what nourish me. I mean, they're my reason.
Yeah.
So I couldn't possibly put any of them aside. I'd be happy to visit the periods, but I would want to be sure that I had some ability to time travel back to today.
Yes, and have the air conditioning for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't blame you.
I'm
I would be the
sorry.
same. Yeah. Yeah. Did you expect the stories of the American Girl characters? Did you expect them to grow as big as they did?
I remember Janet Shaw, who's pure gold. Janet Shaw is one of the most just brilliant, and since you can see it in her books about both Kirsten and Kaya. And I remember when she was writing Kirsten, and she and I were on a book tour together, and she turned to me and she said, Valerie, you and I are going to create enduring literature. And I thought, that's a lofty goal. And I might aspire to that, but I don't know if it will be enduring. So I I can't think of any more wonderful thing to happen for a writer than what happens to me now, which is when I go give a talk and there's some young woman who's in her 30s or 40s, or a young man who's in his 30s or 40s, and says, I read these books and when I was a child, and that's why I became a podcaster. That's why I
Yeah.
became an historian. That's why
Yeah.
I am a librarian, because first of all, the content of the book helped me get interested in that time period or in doing research in history, but also the message of the books, which are kind of, uh, yes, you can. Yes, you can. I'm not going to take any excuse. Yes, you can. You can do this. That message that is a theme that runs through all of the books really got under the skin of my readers. It got next to their heart and under their skin, and they kept it, and they've revisited it, and they're the ones who have kept these books alive. And as you said earlier, when you come back to them as an adult, you see them in a different way. I have
Yes.
many people say, when I read Josefina, I was just, oh my gosh, I thought, I wish I could live on a rancho with all those animals.
Yeah.
That seems like fun. When I read them as an adult, I see those books are a journey through grief.
Yeah.
That's a journey through grief. You're taking us through the healing process, step by step, stumbling sometimes, but you're taking us through what grief is. So when I come back to them as an adult, when I myself have lost a parent,
Yeah.
I I see them in a whole other way,
Yes.
a whole other way. But I
Yes.
can't. I hope it doesn't sound like I was confident and sure that 40 years later, I would be speaking to a person like you who would be asking me these excellent questions. I didn't foresee that. I didn't, I guess maybe I hoped for that, but I would have to say that it's one of the great satisfactions of my life that if they're grown up, it's still young children, and now grandmothers, mothers, and mothers who've handed their books and dolls down to their own daughters, all imbued with the love that they themselves had for them as they pass
Mhm.
those down to their daughters. What a beautiful thing. For you know what, I think Pleasant saw it. I think it was one of Pleasant's ambitions, actually,
Yeah.
for American Girl. I think she saw it. She was always so farsighted. She
Yeah.
always had this, meta view of things, just this gorgeous way of looking ahead. So I think she saw it. So I should have trusted her vision because she was always right about her vision. But I can't take credit myself for foreseeing this.
Yeah. No, it was so special to reread Josefina's books because I think when I was younger, I think her story kind of like had come out like toward when I was like kind of I don't say aging out, but when I was like older and stuff.
Yes.
So when I was going back to reread them, I was like, I don't know if I remember much about Josefina. Like I just didn't remember much of like her story or whatever. And then just rereading it, I was just like, oh, such a great story, such a great character. So it was really fun to reread. And as you know, as readers, we also go through a lot of like as you mentioned, a lot of things ourselves, and so we find different ways to connect and reconnect and identify with these characters as well. So that was really special too. So
One of the things I always like to say to my grown-up readers is, keep a close eye on the fathers
yeah,
in the books. They change. Keep a close eye on the older sisters.
yeah,
Keep a close eye on, Aunt Millie, a great aunt, because all the characters change. And maybe as an adult, you'll come to it and think, you'll make that metaphorical bridge and you'll say, I kind of had a similar experience like that in college. I got to a new place and I thought,
yeah,
no, some parts of it are great, but so you'll make that metaphorical bridge. So yeah, as an adult, you bring a level of sophistication, experience, and subtlety to the
yeah,
stories that maybe you didn't bring. I do firmly believe that children are just as passionate about things as adults are. I've always
yeah,
thought I sure was. I sure was. And so I've imbued my characters with sometimes almost unreasonable passions and determinations, because that's the way I always felt too. And as an adult, you would see that and maybe even kind of smile at
yeah,
some of the characters too far.
yeah,
I love characters who go too far. I love
yeah,
people who go too
yeah.
far.
Right, right. Yeah. And you also wrote some of the, is it the Welly Wishers? I'm not as familiar with them, but can you tell us more about that experience of writing for the Welly Wisher characters?
Yes, I think I wrote 13 Welly Wisher books, which I enjoyed very much. In a way, they were a return for me to writing to my first love, which is writing for very early readers, kids who are just beginning to read. And the Welly Wishers are very early chapter books. And I love writing those stories. They are for girls who still, play imaginatively. But I'm telling you what, Jared, I was totally stubborn about this. I refused to have the Welly Wishers be magic.
Yeah.
There's a spread in every Welly Wisher books where they hold hands and they say, more or less in a rhyme, they say, now we're going to enter into the world of make believe, because I feel so strongly that that the imagination is a muscle, and the more you use it, the stronger it is, and that you don't need magic to make magic happen. You are the magic. And so I wanted that to be the story of the Welly Wishers, and the way they have separate talents, but they fuse those talents. Every one of the talents, even their quirky flaws, turn out to be essential for the adventures that they have. And it was a great pleasure to me to introduce the boy character into the Welly Wishers. It was high time that we had a boy character in those Welly Wisher stories. I love writing them because I too love entering into that garden, in Miranda's garden, where you go in
Mm-hmm.
and you make these adventures happen. You're outdoors all the time. That was important to me. Play, very important to me. One of my motivations was, as I say, I spent a lot of time in schools. Kindergarten has become extremely academic. You're in trouble if you can't write your name. I mean, they expect you
Yeah.
to know the alphabet, your numbers. And I thought, ooh, all of that social stuff that you used to learn in kindergarten, all of that getting along as a group,
Mm-hmm.
all of that defining yourself as an individual in the group, that there's scant time for that anymore. Scant
Yeah.
time, because we've got a syllabus to cover. So I wanted the Welly Wishers to be like, we're in this garden, literally and figuratively. They're in a garden and they can make these great adventures happen using what they love to do, using their humor. I really loved that. Oh, Jared, it's so much fun because my granddaughter's just learning. She can sing Row, Row, Row Your Boat. and she sings some of the and Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, Mary Had a Little Lamb. She's learning to sing those songs that I used in the Welly Wishers. I changed the words in the
Oh,
Welly Wishers.
fun.
So much fun. Can you see how what a circle this is? My life
Yeah.
nourishes the stories that I write, and the stories nourish my life. And then, but here's my granddaughter entering in. When my own daughter was of an age to read the American Girl books, I understood all over again Pleasant's genius and her
Mm,
dedication to quality. No wonder the young readers feel that, taken seriously, because the products are very high quality,
yeah.
created for them. No one had really done that before. So, boy, when I saw my daughter loving these characters and the books and the toys and the products, I thought, oh, Pleasant saw something and gave so much of her own energy and creativity and artistic ability to make this happen. It's very cool, Jared, because Pleasant loves magazines, and she created a
Yeah.
magazine. She loves catalogs, so she created one of the world's all-time great catalogs.
She did,
She loves
yes.
furniture. She loves interior decoration. She loves beautiful clothes. She loves imagination. She loves literature. All the parts of her gifted and multifaceted personality were realized in the American Girl collection. It is Pleasant.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it, talk about enduring. That beauty will always endure.
Do you and Pleasant still stay in touch with each other?
We do.
Uh,
Can you see that picture?
I can't. It's a
To
little
me
fuzzy.
together.
Yeah. Oh, yes, I just saw it. Yeah,
So
well, saw a quick. Yeah. Oh, that's so
we're
fun.
both in blue there. So yeah, I visit her, sort of every other month, and we sit there. I'm telling you what, we laugh. One of the reasons I like your questions are that they're very, I don't know, friendly questions. And I think Pleasant would be unhappy to think that she turned into this kind of, idol. She's very funny. She's extremely irreverent. She used to get me in trouble. I mean, we'd be in
Oh,
meetings and she would, oh my God, she's so funny.
yeah.
And just a lot of times it was just pure fun that we were having, just laugh. And sometimes great ideas come out of those exaggerated, like, well, what if we had this happen? It's like, well, maybe we could. So yeah, we still get together and we laugh and
I
laugh. And of
love
course,
that.
we've known each other for more than 50
I was
years.
gonna say,
50 years.
yeah.
So I know her family. She knows my family. She's all, she loves to give my granddaughters this, wonderful stuff. And so our families are kind of intertwined as well. So yeah, we were friends first and colleagues, and we're still
Oh,
friends and colleagues. And I should send you the picture of, the big book, The Making of American Girl.
yes, yes. I
Can you
actually
see
ended
it?
up getting that. I need to read it. I haven't had a chance to like really fully read it yet, but yes.
So there's
And
an Pleasant and I looked through it together. We're very honored because it's dedicated to Pleasant and me.
yeah.
And we looked through it together, and there were tears, there was laughter. It helped us remember so much about all of the characters. So yeah, that's still a wonderful, just and Jared, when I went for my first interview with Pleasant, she had mixed up with someone else.
Oh,
It was kind of a comedy of errors right from the very
yeah.
beginning. One of the first, she said to me, "So how did you like Wellesley?" I'm like, "Well, I didn't go to Wellesley." And then she said, you know, she was determined that I was going to be a writer. And I said, "No, no, Pleasant, I'm not brave enough to be a writer. I'd like to be an editor." And she said, "No, no, 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 no." I mean, for the first, she had way more faith in my writing ability than I did.
Oh,
What a wonderful
funny.
day. We both say that was really a lucky day we met each other.
Oh, I just love that you still stay in touch and everything. That's so great. Yeah. I mean, hey, if Pleasant wants to come on here and chat sometime, we'd love to have her. So,
She's so funny because I'll say, "Well, what have you been up to?" "Oh, nothing." And then she, "Well, I did have a family reunion for 75 members of my family." Her idea of nothing is my idea of like what I might accomplish in a year.
right.
So
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
she's just fantastic.
She does it all. Yeah. Yeah. So my next question too is, do you still follow I'm sure you probably still follow the American Girl brand, and do you like the changes that they've made over the years since it's been like Pleasant Company?
I haven't kept up with the new stuff as much as I should, really. I haven't
Sure.
kept up with even the new books. I haven't read all of the
Yeah.
new books probably as much as I should. I'll say that I'm impressed
Yeah.
with the breadth. I love the breadth of the new, all the new stuff and the variety and I love the way it's kept up to date with what children are interested in now. And I'm also really impressed with the way uh, American Girl and Mattel keeps refreshing and repurposing. That's another reason why people are still involved with these characters, because they're refreshed and repurposed and brought out in a different story or a different situation. And that's just tremendous. I mean, that's another thing I never could have foreseen or imagined. It's really, really
Yeah.
impressive. Some of the other, like the princesses and things, I haven't quite kept up with that as
Sure.
much,
Yeah.
because there's so much still based on the American Girl characters and everything. That's really interesting to see.
Yeah, same. I have really stuck with just the OGs. I like to call them the early
Yeah.
historicals. So if anything past that, I'm not super familiar with either. So what was the next question I was gonna ask too is as we're celebrating the 40th anniversary of American Girl, what does that mean to you for the brand and these characters and why they're still beloved by many?
That's another excellent question, because what the 40th anniversary has done has put me back put me back talking to groups a lot. I was just at the Library of Congress. I'm going back to Williamsburg. I was just at the Smithsonian. So, and then next week I'm going to an American Girls summer camp, which is about the cutest thing you've ever seen.
Oh,
It's
fun.
really adorable. So I've done that for many, many years. I go to the summer. It's just up the road a little bit. So I love being back out there talking about American Girl again. I learned so much, when I go out and speak about it. One of the great joys of this 40th anniversary for me has been, again, meeting the grown up young women who have taken the stories to heart and their message to heart and used them as inspiration. And they're going to change the world, and the young men too. I
Yeah.
see the world changing. I see an energy that I wouldn't have known about, I think, if it hadn't been this 40th anniversary. When you celebrate something together, it unifies people, that it unifies you in a way. It's like a big family reunion. It's like a
Hmm.
big party. It's like a wedding. And it's this lovely, generous openness where you see people and you hear from people, and to be out there speaking to people who still love the books or still have great ideas for the books, or the little girls who are just coming to
Yeah.
the books now, and boys. One of my most favorite pen pals is a boy named George. He lives in Annapolis, not too far away. Tremendous artist. He's made
Yeah.
me a beautiful piece of art. So my world has opened up again, through this 40th anniversary, in a way that I I didn't foresee. It's really lovely. It's like opening a beautiful, beautiful box, untying a bow and
Yes.
taking off the lid and lifting the tissue paper. And it's like, whoa, here it is again. It's just lovely.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a niece who just recently turned 2, and I got her, I don't know if you saw that American Girl made like the My First plush dolls.
Yes.
So I got her Samantha, and then I got her the little book set so she could get an early introduction to the early historicals, and eventually when she's old enough, I'll pass the the
I
historical
gave
books
my
now.
granddaughter the plush Josefina, and the
Yeah.
Josefina book, because that I said to her, Eleanor, this is your legacy, New
Yeah.
Mexico. You need to know about this.
Yep.
So this is a good place for you to start. You start with Josefina.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been really fun to like for me in my age and my time just like pass that down those characters that I really enjoyed reading growing up down to her, as many I'm sure many other people have done the same as well. Uh
One of my initial motivations was that I wanted to spark conversations among the
yeah.
generations. I wanted a girl to say, Grandma, was Grandpa, did he fight in World War II?
Hmm.
And have Grandma say, yeah, come up to the attic and I'll show you. we still have his uniform or something. So I was hoping that the reader would realize, my family has a story too. I am what
Yeah.
American history is. Not only is my family part of American history and made contributions, but I'm going to make contributions. So that aspect of the multi-generational uh, experience of sharing American Girl has always been one of my main goals. But I'm not sure I foresaw that, the grandmother would say, I'm the one who bought the doll. And then the mother
Yeah.
would say, I'm the one who is now handing it down
Yeah.
to my daughter or son. Um, I can't say that I foresaw that, but it's so lovely and so just heartwarming.
Yeah, yeah. So, also back to the stories that you wrote, is there a favorite like collection or item from a collection that has just always been like a favorite, whether it was like a trunk or a doll or just some other like accessory or item from a collection?
Yes, absolutely. One of my absolute favorite things is Kit's typewriter. When I was a little girl, my father had a typewriter like that. I'm telling you, you could use
Oh,
it as an anchor for a steamship. Those typewriters weighed a ton.
oh, yeah,
And my sisters and I would, type on it, and the smell of the ink on the ribbon and the ding sound that the carriage made and the feeling of your fingers on the keys. The fact that the product development people developed that gorgeous typewriter for Kit, I just absolutely love it. I love it. And Pleasant said of all the products American Girl developed, that's her favorite, the typewriter. I
oh,
think symbolically,
yeah,
the typewriter is wonderful too, because it's about expressing yourself. And when I when I make speeches and I explain, this is kind of like a laptop, um, Kit's dad fixes this for Kit. And when he does, I say, that's like when your dad drives you to your soccer match. He's not
hmm
just getting you to the soccer match. Kit's father's not just giving her a typewriter. He's saying, I'm so proud of you. I'm so glad you love to do this. I'm going to support you. If you want to be a writer, I'm going to fix this typewriter. If you want to play soccer, I'm going to drive you to the game. It's actions are what love is made visible. So that's one reason why I love the typewriter. And then on a purely frivolous note, for some reason, do you know Molly's best friend, Emily? Emily
yes,
Bennett, she comes from England. I loved writing that story because I could learn all about, the evacuees. Her cardigan slays me. For
yeah,
some reason, Emily's, I don't know why.
yeah,
And it's a terrible thing, Jared, because I'll buy the cardigan and then I will not be able to part with it.
yeah,
It makes me very greedy. I just adore that cardigan.
yeah,
I
yeah,
love her dress, the dress that it comes with, but for some reason it's the cardigan, maybe because it's just such a perfect miniature.
yeah.
I just adore it. So, I mean, there are many, many products that I love all the way through. I always love the characters' pets. I get a huge kick out of,
Oh, yes, those
Kit's
are,
dog
yeah,
Grace. I mean, all of them. I love the pets.
yes.
Sombrita and Jip.
Yeah.
I mean, all the dogs and everything. But for some reason, those two stand out: the typewriter and Emily's cardigan. I wish they made a cardigan like that for grown-ups.
Hey, American Girl, if you're listening.
I mean, it's just a
Maybe.
little like cardigan with buttons but anyway,
Yeah.
it's just so cute. It's so cute. Aren't the, I mean, the products and the clothes are so pleasing. They're
Yeah.
tactilely pleasing. And I think we learn through our aesthetic sense as much as we do through our oral sense or our visual sense. When we interact with something, we're learning about important things. When I have girls over to tea, I always have them put on Molly's raincoat and say, it's heavy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, synthetics didn't exist. I'm sorry. Your
Right.
raincoat was going to be this heavy to keep you dry. And you think that's bad? Try the boots.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, I was actually that was gonna be my next question is along with the favorite product, do you have a favorite outfit from any of the characters? Like a top favorite outfit
well, I
or
have
the
a
card?
special feeling for Felicity's summer outfit because my daughter had that. And it was so enchanting, just so, so, so enchanting. It brings back really happy memories of when my daughter was highly involved with American Girl. And I still have it in the closet. So when my
Yeah.
granddaughter's old enough, she can, if she wants to, she can enjoy that outfit too. I always found that one enchanting. I also love, um, because of the favor that it did for me, Kit's Christmas dress.
Mhm.
Because when that came back from the designers, it had this huge white collar. And in order to make the collar not just a sea of white, the dress designers had put a little Scotty dog pin on the collar.
Oh,
And from that Scotty dog pin, that inspired the character of Inky, Uncle Hendric's rather unpleasant dog. So I owe
ah,
that dress and that pin an enormous debt of gratitude. I love Inky because he's so
yeah,
unpleasant.
yeah,
But he serves a purpose too in that Christmas story. You see, he serves a purpose too.
yeah, yeah. So outside of like writing and doing all the things, what else do you enjoy doing nowadays?
Well, you know, my husband and I we travel a lot, and I'm back and forth now between Boulder, Colorado, and my home here in Silver Spring. So we're back and forth. In fact, my husband just left this morning to drive to Boulder from Silver Spring, and then I'm going to fly out after ALA in Chicago. I'm going to be at the American Library Association in Chicago, June 27th, I think. And then after that, I'll fly to Boulder. So we're back and forth and we travel a lot. And, when you get to be our age, Jared, you have so many wonderful friends, that you have lots of visitors and we see family and that kind of thing. And my husband has a music festival in our backyard every
Oh,
year. He just had that
fun.
last Saturday. So we're very involved with our neighborhood and our friends and traveling and our family. But my husband's one of six. I'm one of five. So do the math. I mean,
Yeah,
just exponential. So
yeah.
we love spending time with it. We always see, our family a lot too. So we're just, busy all the time. And I still do a lot of writing and, emails. And then I write these little essays for myself and stuff like that too. So yeah, I don't know, just busy all the time.
Yeah, no, that's so great. And as we wrap up here, what is your advice for maybe aspiring writers?
I think, and you're going to love this advice, it's read. Just read it, read everything. And don't say to yourself, oh, this is just a rom-com book. This is beneath, nothing is beneath you. Read everything. You'll learn something from everything that you read, not just the content, but the style. And you'll say, why did the author do it this way? Just read and read and read. I think that's the best way to learn how to be a writer. And, people say you have to write about what you know. And yes, that's true in a figurative sense, emotional authenticity. But if you want to imagine that you are a Martian from outer space, if that's what you feel passionately about, if you think that that is going to be the vehicle through which you're going to express something that's important to you, do that. You don't have to have lived an experience to imagine what it would be like. So, and in fact, when you write about it, you'll be learning about what it would be like. So I would say be brave, read, research, be brave, have every experience that's offered to you, and go ahead, try, experiment, write about anything that interests you, and don't self-edit. Don't say, well, I have to write this sentence perfectly. There's a lot of chaos. Every creative
Yeah.
process has a lot of chaos in it. You have to tolerate chaos, which I don't like to tolerate chaos, but I've learned to be patient with it because it's an essential step. So read, go ahead and write. Don't limit yourself and don't edit yourself, and say yes to experiences.
Yeah. So who are some of your favorite authors, and do you have any excuse me, book recommendations that might be in relation to the American Girl characters that you'd recommend to readers?
Yes. You and I don't have enough time to talk about all my favorite
Sure. Yeah.
authors, and you
Yeah.
can see that the bookshelf behind me is
Yes.
crammed, and that's only like 1/10. And unfortunately, my husband loves books too. So we're talking, I think this house is going to collapse under the weight,
Yeah.
but I can't bear to part with any of them because I'm a big rereader. I love to
Yes.
reread. I
Yep.
just reread three books that were crucial to me when I was growing up. One is called Understood Betsy by Dorothy Canfield Fisher. If you haven't read it, Jared, it's wonderful.
On my
That
list.
book
Yeah.
is that's why I write historical fiction. It's written for like a eight-year-old level, but just wonderful book, funny and wonderful. And then another book I love has a little bit of romance in it. It's called The Sherwood Ring by Elizabeth Marie Pope. And that's also historical fiction. And I just reread them because I mentioned them to a friend and I thought, you better read them again, Valerie, and be sure. I mean, I read them every year, but I thought read them again. And it was delightful. So, and I love Anne of Green Gables. I just reread that whole series. I like Little House on the Prairie. I love anything by E.B. White, Trumpet of the Swan, Charlotte's Web, Stuart Little. I love it. I love everything by Beverly Cleary. Oh my gosh, what a genius she was. Talk about really understanding children. Any book by Beverly Cleary, just wonderful. I love it when I go on a Beverly Cleary jag because it's just, she wrote a lot of books. And those are just the children's books. And then, of course, I love 19th century literature. I love Middlemarch and all of, anything George Eliot wrote. And I'm a big Jane Austen fan. So that would be
Yes.
18th, well, very beginning of 19th century, 18th. I love all of those books too. And I love nonfiction. As I've gotten older, I've grown to love nonfiction more. I love David McCullough. I love Doris Kearns Goodwin. I had the great good fortune when I was only about 11 to become fascinated with Eleanor Roosevelt. So I just read everything I can ever get my hands on about Eleanor Roosevelt. She just fascinates me. So I'm pretty much constantly reading at least one book, if not three. I've made a wonderful discovery. When I can't sleep at night, between 2 and 3 a.m., I read children's books because the font is big.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
I don't read a book that I have to read for book group where I'm going to be, have to have a serious opinion about it. But I can go back to children's books and, I can read them because the font is big. So, yeah, I'm just constantly reading. I absolutely love to read. Absolutely love it. And as I say, I'm indiscriminate. I don't dismiss anything. It's all worth it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Valerie, this has been so special, and I appreciate your time and you coming on today and chatting with us. Thank you
I
so much
loved
again.
it.
Yes, thank you so much again for all the amazing stories and characters you created. And I greatly appreciate you coming on.
Well, Jared, I have to give you a thank you because, an interview is only as good as the person asking the questions.
Oh,
And your questions they were just wide ranging, but specific also, and really fun and thoughtful and sort of original and fresh. So thank you. I really appreciate your questions. Thank you very much.
thank you so much, Valerie.
So do we say goodbye now?